I come to you today to talk about Away from Final Fantasy XVI, really one of the most intense tracks in the game. Since there are actually lyrics, I think the problem is we don't really understand them. And so what I'd like to do is separate this video into certain chunks, and I'd like to actually sing individual phrases for you so that you can hear individual stanzas. Well, I'm going to stop and start and talk about the lyrics. We're going to talk about the music. We're going to really dive deep into this one. Expect another longish video, and I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. So it's a pretty interesting thing and very common to paint music to create images. In this case, as Ifrit emerges from, to protect and stop Joshua from this moment of weakness that Joshua's had as he's become the Phoenix and sort of lost control, incidentally also losing control. This music here is very, very interesting. If we rewind, check this out. Do you hear how that literally gives you the soundscape of that swirling fire? I think that that's such a fantastic thing that has happened again for hundreds of years now. You get the Storm Trio from Rigoletto, where it literally is a trio of people, Maddalena, Sparafucile, and Gilda. They're singing, and there's a storm brewing around in the music, and you can literally hear the bolts of lightning and things like this. Has been happening for years now. Another very clear example is in Ravel, the fire aria from Ravel's Les Enfants et le Sortilège. That's another example of pure fire, and I wish I could play you some of these examples, but it's a little bit complex with opera and performance and things, so I can't. But so this idea of fire has been around for tons of years, and it's a very obvious musical gesture, and in this case it makes complete sense. And I think, too, I want to point out that this moment when our friend there gets burned alive, and actually if you look and remember in this scene, when Phoenix becomes the Phoenix, he also burns several soldiers and allies alive. I think it's a really interesting thing here to sort of have the resolution of that fire theme peak once our friend is burned here. Right here. You see how right as soon as that happens, that's when the action happens on screen. And again, if you saw my Ascension video, I talk a little bit about this with the idea that only in video games, as this complete package, this gesamtkunstwerk, can we highlight little moments visually and connect them to music and also, the drama. And there's all these different things that video games do exceptionally well. That in this particular instance, that is another clear moment. And there's several in this fight scene as well. I like the inherent tension there if you listen close. You hear the dissonance in those upper instruments. I find it kind of interesting that right now we have that sort of ploddy introductory music. Boom, 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 sharp rhythms, a little bit of syncopation. But then you also have dissonance, but not in the traditional sense. You get like a trumpet and I don't know, like a French horn or something, probably mostly just a series of trumpets that are all just slightly dissonant up there to cause this feeling of discomfort in us. And obviously it's quite the sight. We have now two icons of fire. We didn't expect Clive to become a second icon of fire, and we don't know why the circumstances are the way they are after seeing that invisible man, which obviously we now know to be a certain enemy. But that's really effective in a non-like horror dissonant sort of way. In horror games, we often get dissonance that is makes its intention is to make us uncomfortable, make us feel a little bit on edge. This one is just like, whoa, what's this mean? It's funny how instrumentation, but also where the dissonance can also cause a different emotional feeling. Strings are usually the thing that causes dissonance. You'll usually hear that string thing. The sound I'm talking about. And in this particular instance, we're not doing it with those instruments. We're doing it with the horns, and it's just a slight thing to make us feel a little bit on edge. So this is really, 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 really cool, and we have to go back and listen to this, but there's a lot happening here. It is so subtle and in the background. Obviously, in the foreground, we have these rip-roaring strings, right? That makes complete sense, right? We hear that. But check this out. We reset, and then we launch. Sforzando. Listen underneath the strings with their sharp 16th note rhythms. Listen to the way that the timpani is going bum, bum, bum. And then you also have the bass instruments going dum, 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 dum. And then listen to the counter melody in the horn. Ba, 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 ba. That's actually more interesting in some ways than the strings. So it's funny because the strings are louder. Theoretically, the strings draw attention, but actually the thing that is more melodic is that horn underneath. Listen to that counter harmony, the counter melody. You hear that? Da 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 da. It reminds me of Laguna's theme. That's interesting. Notice that we're actually descending here, and we hear it musically. Da, 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 da. Even though the strings are doing their thing, and they're kind of, the strings to me are still doing this fire thing, which makes sense given the situation. But if you listen, the strings are sort of swirling and fire blazing, but then underneath, we're descending musically to signify this descending, and then we're gonna repeat this fire theme here in a second. Dun 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 dun. So something really cool that's happening right there is the fact that we are actually doubling this men's ensemble. Men's ensembles are a really interesting thing to me because I think in video games especially, a men's ensemble is all about virility, strength, a battle between two epic forces. It's really rare to hear men sort of outside of this context and also outside of like enemy or like evil doer nemesis quality to it. But so I really like that tune. We're descending, so you have a descending quality there. And then check this out. Listen how low those men go. You hear the swirling fire. So that's such an amazing gesture because it goes right. So it doesn't go no, it goes and what we're doing is actually sliding in the scale going higher. But also what I want to do in this particular video is since it's really hard, the English is almost unintelligible, I'd like to sing along to it so you hear it in context.
O Prometheus, Epimetheus, hollows out your noble name. O Prometheus, Epimetheus, clamors for your stolen flame.
And so looking at those lyrics, Prometheus was the god that stole fire from the gods, right? Epimetheus was his brother, who was a lesser known god, a second generation titan, if I recall from my readings. And what that means, he helped create mankind, but was sort of looked down on as a little bit of a fool, and then hollows out your noble name. So this is really interesting. Like, the lyrics actually basically tell us the entire plot of the game, and certainly this current moment with Ifrit and Phoenix. Prometheus being, I actually think, being Clive in this case, because I feel my interpretation of these lyrics is that Ifrit stole the flame from Phoenix, and so that's why they're battling it out. Hollows out your noble name. Prometheus hollows out the noble name of Epimetheus. O Prometheus, Epimetheus clamors for your stolen flame. Epimetheus clamors for the stolen flame that was stolen by Ifrit. We'll keep doing this, having this back and forth. More fire. And that obviously is incredibly epic, but looking at the lyrics, fiery bonds severed a twain, innocent lost, buried in broken faith. Like that's really, really, really powerful. Fiery bonds severed a twain, innocence lost, buried in the broken faith, right? Like it really feels, that's the crux of this entire song. Fiery bonds severed together, innocence lost, Joshua, buried in broken faith. Faith, Clive was supposed to be the shield to the prince. And shield to Joshua, and that was stolen. I also love, if you take a listen to this, the snare is so fantastic. And the way that, again, this is such a rhythmic piece. And we have this little moments in each of these sections where we have these rhythmic interludes that help to give us the feeling of a new phase of the music. So it's really interesting how Soken does this, because basically it's big melodic section, small rhythmic section that builds into the next rhythmic melodic section, and then we continue on. It's really exciting. And listen to that fantastic section there in the horns. That is that counter melody to the right here. And then we shift back into the melodic section. You know, the thing that really, I find intriguing and interesting about this track is that there isn't a lot of fear. Usually there's a very present emotion that we listen to whenever we're listening to music. Usually composers will lead with an emotional state. And I think in this particular case, it's like, think about it. These two have been brothers since their entire lives. But, this is the first time that they've harnessed this raw, and I think fire is a really key point here too. Fire energy, right? That the icon of fire. Fire, is a giver of life. It's a taker of life. It's ferocious. It's brutal. I think the Phoenix is supposed to be the savior, and Ifrit is this sort of. It's interesting the duality between these two and how they both have the same element that is incredibly ferocious and powerful, but both Phoenix and Ifrit are different. It's really interesting, but they're both incredibly powerful, yet they represent the same element. I think that's really cool. Let's go back really quickly. I just want to sing this little section.
A stormhead fills the horizon, foul shadows whispering ruin. Yet from this darkness arises the burning light of a new end. Far from heaven flown, town and town on weary rings horn, carried lower, deep below, from light to shadow, line to shadow.
Another rhythmic section. Brutal emphasis on those drums. And then we go right to the beat.
For in the strife of imperial catastrophe, worlds of earth and infernal flames on high, fire in the night, a scarlet beacon in the sky. Look up to yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the first section where we actually hear the sadness that's happening between, well, certainly not Clive, because in this particular instance, Clive doesn't really have any self-control. But this is now Phoenix. Josh was a little bit in control of Phoenix, and I feel like there's a little bit of that desperation that creeps in, because it's like, I don't, you know, he doesn't want to kill Ifrit. He's just trying to protect himself and protect the land that he loves, right? But I want to look at the lyrics here really quickly. God, what an amazing choral section. Obviously, I'm an opera singer, so to me, I'm inherently drawn to not only the power of the rhythm here, but also the way that the words are placed rhythmically. So let's break some of that down, shall we? So right away, a storm head fills the horizon. A storm is brewing out in the distance. A storm head fills the horizon. You hear how, like, extending the words, horizon, we can indicate with vocals that the storm head is that way. It's coming. There's a change approaching. You know what I mean? There too, foul shadows whispering ruin. There too, I think it's really interesting, whispering ruin. So think about it this way, foul shadows whispering ruin. Like, that has meaning when we just speak it. But now listen to it. Foul shadows whispering ruin. That slight shift at the end, ruin. It doesn't go ruin. It's less effective than ruin. Ruin. It's pretty cool. Little word painting like that can really make a difference. Yet from this darkness arises the burning light of a new end. And that's something that's worth noting too. Yet from this darkness arises, which is just like a storm head fills the horizon, right? So we have a repeat, a second phrase, but now it goes new end. It goes up. It doesn't go ruin. It goes new end. The burning light of a new end, and it has finality even though it goes up. New end. It's so much more impactful to go new end rather than new end, right? Or new end. It's different. And then what's very, very interesting to me is that then we get the sopranos. So this is really cool. So now we have this like really kind of introspective moment. Far from heaven, heaven flown. There too, light to shadow, and then we launch into a new phase. And I think, to me, these big block chords with a lot of heavy emphasis, bum, 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 that to me emphasizes Ifrit bounding around and Phoenix's fireballs, right? That's very much combat music. But also, again, it's this rhythmic pause before we launch into another melodic section. The strife of imperial catastrophe. Worlds of higher fan infernal flames on high. Burning the night, a scarlet beacon in the sky. The firmament reddens, throw open your wings and fly. You hear that? You hear how the word painting changes? One more time. This is so much fun for me. I love that. Circled in the strife of an imperial catastrophe. It goes da 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 da, back down, da 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 da, catastrophe. Worlds of ire, fan infernal flames on high. Worlds of ire, which is again, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about ire, brutality, anger. Worlds of ire, fan infernal flames on high. It doesn't go flames on high. It goes flames on high. It goes back up. Flames on high. It's a little fun little painting. Back up. I love that too, because that to me is sort of again another crux of this. Look up to the heavens, the firmament reddens. Throw open your wings and fly. Throw open your wings and fly. Right? Oh, that is so satisfying. And now, do you hear the desperation in this? Da ya da da ya da 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 ya da 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 da. And then we're thrust right back, and we get like a second phase of this. But also, what's interesting to me is that the lyrics are actually different. Yes, a stormhead fills the horizon, foul shadows whispering ruin. Right, we've had that before. Far from heaven flown, dry your eyes and let your wings fold. From the dark light be reborn and rise from shadow. Rise from shadow. Circled in the strife of an Empyrean catastrophe, tongues of fire, incandescent oaths to cry. Shadows in the night, a swirling cyclone in the sky. Look down to the nether. Bid farewell forever. Throw open your wings and fly. Now I feel like this section is about Joshua and Phoenix. Dry your eyes. He doesn't want to fight. Let your wings fold. From the dark light be reborn and rise from the shadow. Rise like a phoenix, circled in the strife of an Empyrean catastrophe. Tongues of fire, incandescent oaths decry. Shadows in the night, because it's nighttime. A swirling cyclone in the air of fire. Look down to the nether, which is where they've been fighting. Bid farewell forever. Throw open your wings, leave that behind, get out of there, and fly away. Let's just listen to it, because it's a banger. Again, do you hear how this like fuels adrenaline? And again, we're getting this fire spinning feeling, which is so motivating because we're controlling Phoenix at this point, and we are feeling like flying through the air like we are a fire bird. And I mean, this is obvious, but I just want you to understand that feeling of whirling is because we're controlling a giant bird made of flames. Also love this. Da 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 da. Again, it's such a rhythmic piece. It really helps set the stage. Get it right there. Listen to the way that timpani's just rocking. I love that sort of syncopated rhythm there. And I actually think that the second verse is, if the first verse was kind of this like a Greek chorus narrative, like Greek choruses so it's a funny thing, but like in Greek tragedy, a Greek chorus, this is from Wikipedia, or simply chorus in the context of ancient Greek tragedy, comedy, satire plays, and modern works inspired by them, is a homogeneous, not individualized group of performers who comment with a collective voice on the dramatic action. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you could argue that this entire Song of Away is actually a Greek chorus marking on the tragedy of Phoenix and Ifrit and Prometheus and Epimetheus. So that's a really cool little gesture too, that essentially, and then we are watching this drama unfold like a Greek tragedy. Brother fighting brother makes complete sense from a Greek tragedy perspective, no? I really want to talk about this piano too. Bum 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 bum. The piano is such an interesting choice here because it's very warm. It's almost like a sympathetic moment, like a moment of a reflection on the love for a brother, and like especially at Joshua's age, he's so young to have finally harnessed this power of the Phoenix. It's almost like this like tender reproach where you wish you didn't have to see him go through it. You know what I mean? I do think that this section represents Ifrit, that violence represent the bounding around is full-heartedly, fully, I think, referencing Ifrit. Notice that the instrumentation actually cuts down. Circled in the strife of an Empyrean catastrophe, tongues of fire, incandescent, oh, stick cry. Shadows in the night are swirling. Yeah, I think that pulling all the way back with the orchestration there is actually a reflection on Joshua understanding his duty and finally stepping into that savior of his people that he is supposed to be. And especially because we're launching this major attack by Ifrit, this is the moment to galvanize and to believe in oneself, to move forward and end this threat. I mean, listen, its only bass is going dun 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 dun. Yeah, what an absolutely incredible track. I mean, that is just incredible to me in so many ways, and there is so much going on here that honestly, I'm not even sure that a video or two or three could do it justice. It's so layered and so interesting and so thematically important and fun to experience in context and also out of context. It's a ravishing piece of music, and yeah, there's more Final Fantasy 16, of course, to come on the channel. Feel free to like, subscribe, and yeah, join the Discord if you like Final Fantasy, and I'll see you in the next video, okay? Bye.